the Canadian College Bowl. On behalf of... Brought to you by the Armed Forces and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and its affiliated states. Ideal weather this afternoon. In the bowl game, and undefeated teams in their respective conference. Waterloo Lutheran. And let's meet Waterloo. The left end, Paul Markle, 75. Number 63, the left tackle, Ralph Spaltor. Number 55, the left guard, Doug Wood. At center, number 43, Bob Honey. Number 54, the right guard, Mike McMahon. At right tackle, number 67, Dave Necto. The right end, 74, Ken Will. At left halfback, 36, John Crespi. Number 24, the fullback, John Watson. The right halfback, number 22, Murray Markowitz. Number 34 is the flanker, Greg McQueen. And at quarterback for Waterloo Lutheran, Dave McKay, number 16. Their opponents, St. Francis Xavier X-Men, 81, John Purcell, the left end. Number 72, the left tackle, John Kearney. Number 65, the left guard, Bernie McLean. At center is number 52, Ted Goodwin. The right guard, number 63, Neil McDonald. The right tackle, number 75, is Jim Shea. The right end, number 82, Paul Schonard. Number 27 is Skip Corrigan, the left halfback. The outstanding fullback, number 30, Paul Brule. Number 20 is the flanker, Terry Aronson. Number 41 at halfback, Terry Gorman. And number 10, the quarterback, Terry Dolan. His Worship, Mayor Philip Gibbons, the ceremonial kickoff, and of course, this is the bowl queen, Judy McDonald. No college bowl would be quite complete without the attendant social whirl, and this game had very pleasant social overtones. The College Bowl dinner was highlighted by the crowning of Judy McDonald as the 1966 College Bowl Queen. A great reception for a gracious lady, heading the bowl committee, hard-working Peter Gorman. Enthusiasm everywhere. And even the football players admired some of this intricate footwork. Before the game, the fans were moving into the mood of Canada's major college sports attraction. The crowd barely settled in their seats when halfback Skip Corrigan started the X-Men on their way.
And off wide to Skip Corrigan. Corrigan got outside a block. Now the pursuit is on. He's into the 20, fights one off, and goes out of bounds on the 14-yard line. This is St. Francis Xavier, the X-Men with the ball. Early in the ball game here. Terry Dolan going back to throw, and it's complete, and touchdown. Terry Arneson in the end zone. Made the perfect catch, beating the defender deep.
After the Aronson heroics, Waterloo Lutheran tried to start a drive, but once again, disaster struck.
Again, a fumble outside. The ball is recovered, and the X-Men again have that ball inside the 25-yard line as John Burke came diving in.
The X-Men failed to move the ball on a fullback trap. They went into the pass formation and scored again.
This is the same formation. Pumps once, throws, complete to the 10. Terry Gorman, touchdown. And they make the convert good. Convert good all the way by John Burke, number 28. And St. Francis Xavier University, the X-Men, appearing to be very sharp this afternoon, have moved into a 14-0 lead with 54 seconds remaining in the opening period.
After a punt in the second quarter, the crowd tried to rally the Hawks, who were punting from their 11-yard line.
Off the side of the foot, got on the 40-yard line by John Burke, and Burke is snowed under. He got it at the 38 and actually went back about a step, and it'll be marked at the 38, where it'll be first down for St. Francis Xavier. The ends are Paul Schoenhart and John Purcell. The quarterback, Calgary's Terry Dolan. Handoff, and the hole opened up for Paul Brule. He's at the 15, 10, 5, touchdown. And that Brule can run. And St. Francis Xavier, X-Men, 20, Waterloo Lutheran, nothing. And the convert attempt is no good. A good gainer for the Golden Hawks of about 8 yards. Second down, short yardage. Waterloo with the flanker set wide, Murray Markowitz. The handoff is over the center. It's a break by John Watson. Watson breaks out of the 50s and finally is wrestled down at the 53-yard line. Bill Morris was the last man back, and he had to wrestle John Watson. Watson, a 180-pounder, just broke off tackle, knocked over a linebacker, and then went for 29 yards. As we mentioned earlier, he's the son of the famed wrestling star, Whipper Billy Watson,
who was in the stands, but Waterloo were forced to give up the ball. The X-Men took over and then set up a big gainer.
Second and 11. Back to throw, Terry Dolan. He's got it open. Great catch by Skip Corrigan, and Corrigan is out of bounds on the 24-yard line of the Golden Hawks. And again, it was Adrian Dreyfeld, number 25, who was called on to make the defensive play. The play, 51 yards, first down. And there's Brule again. Brule into the 23-yard line. Ian Rankin, number 32 of the Golden Hawks, made the tackle. 7 minutes, 23 seconds remaining in the first half. St. Francis Xavier X-Men with a 20-0 lead are pressing again. They go into a wide double wing slotted to the left side. Dolan rolls back, is taking a look deep. There's his throw, and it is complete on the 2. Touchdown on a great catch by Terry Gorman. Gorman has come up with another touchdown. And Terry Dolan is making this a personal success story in this Canadian College Bowl. In 6 plays, they went 102 yards. Now watch. Here's Dolan's throw. The excellent catch over the shoulder.
But this started Waterloo with a drive.
First down, goal to go for the Golden Hawks. They trail 27-0. Twin flankers to the left side. The flag is up. Pitch out is wide. Murray Markowitz comes in, and he's at the 5. Another flag down, and offside has been called against St. Francis. Greg McQueen sets wide to the left side. There's the handoff. The ball is fumbled. And apparently the Golden Hawks have recovered. The ball got away from John Watson, the fullback. Jim Shea came diving in, And the gain is about half a yard. It is second now. The ball is nosing to the 3-yard line with 33 seconds remaining in the opening half. Can they do it? The crowd is hoping that they can. McQueen flank wide left. McKay, all the motion is left. There's a pitch out. Going wide is Markowitz at the 5. Touchdown! And the Golden Hawks are in the ballgame. The pitch out wide to Murray Markowitz. And Markowitz kept moving outside until he found the room. And on the replay, now watch this, there's that first block, but he also had to get by the defender who had managed to evade the blocker after being crushed, and he went into the end zone with the touchdown. And it's St. Francis Xavier 27, Waterloo Lutheran 6. Greg McQueen with the ball held by John Watson. Ball is down, McQueen gets it up, and it is good.
Now let's move down to the field and Doug Maxwell and the presentation to a very beautiful guest, Judy McDonald.
Well, one of the significant aspects of the halftime ceremony is the presentation to the College Bowl Queen. Mr. Art Thompson, the general marketing manager for Ford, will make that presentation. And Mr. Thompson, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson.
Thanks, Doug, and there you have a beautiful girl and a beautiful automobile. Moving toward the track now, and of course, also in the picture, others of the beauties who just didn't make it this year. The halftime show featured the De La Salle Oaklands, the University of Toronto Blue and White Band, and of course, participating students from the competing university. A colorful show every inch of the way. The weather, as we mentioned, ideal too. It made everyone think of next year's College Bowl game. Now to Doug Maxwell.
Well, the score, 27-7 in favor of the blue and white of St. Francis Xavier. They're in the light-colored sweaters to our right. The dark-colored sweaters, the Waterloo Lutheran Golden Hawks. They have a 20-point deficit to overcome, and they have to kick off. So, Norm, you tell us what happens as we go into the second half of the 1966 College Bowl game.
John Crespi kicking off. Short kick, the ball bouncing just inside the 30. That's Terry Gorman turning number 41, and Gorman is driven out of bounds on the 23-yard line.
At this stage of the game, the teams ran into a real defensive stalemate. Neither team able to sustain a real drive.
And it is a defensive stalemate. It has been throughout the third quarter. We've had no scoring since the final minute of the first half, when the Golden Hawks managed to come up with their only touchdown of the ballgame. Terry Arneson going back with Bill Morris. Arneson is 20. The punter will be Tom Allen. Left-footed punter gets it away. Arneson lets it bounce, goes over his head, is taken on the 10. Bellying back with it, though, is Bill Morris. He's back to his 2. Ball is fumbled and recovered in the end zone. Safety touch, and that almost was a touchdown for the Golden Hawks, who had their hands on the ball in the end zone. The score in this, let's just check it now. It's going to be ruled as a single point. So the score in this Canadian college football game, St. Francis Xavier 27, Waterloo Lutheran 8. Second down. Gain of 4. Bill Rivoli has been in at center. He replaced Ted Goodwin earlier. Twin flankers right. Dolan rolls right. Here's the throw, and it is complete. And breaking away, it's Gorman at the 30. Straight arms one is into the 10, into the 9-yard line. Jeff Brown made a great recovery to come back and make the tackle on runaway Gorman.
First down, goal to go. Dolan to Brule. And he's to the 6. Second down. Goal to go. Pitch out to Brule at the 5. And there was a good defensive play at the 3-yard line. Now this is it. Third down. Goal to go. This could be a big touchdown, or it could be a great defensive play. And here's Dolan, number 10. Sets. Fakes. He's going to pass in the end zone, and it is touchdown. Gorman made the catch. And the X-Men have gone 85 yards in 7 plays for the touchdown. And that was just there. A good call. Watch it now. Dolan fakes once, rolls out and throws, and the ball almost hit the ground but was picked off. And now they'll attempt to convert. St. Francis leading 33-8. Make it 34-8 as John Burke makes the convert good. There's the whistle, and away we go again. Ball is caught on the 12 by Chris Bailey. Blocking holds him up, but not enough. And at the 27-yard line, down goes Crespi. And he was wrestled down on the play by number 63, Neil McDonald.
Waterloo Lutheran still had more than a little fighting spirit remaining, and another big play in the book. They had the ball at their own 44-yard line.
McKay throwing deep, and a great catch, and breaking away at the 15-10-5 is Chris Bailey. Oh, there is an explosive return touchdown for the Golden Hawks. As Chris Bailey, on a surprise, got behind the deep defender, Dave McKay hit him for a 67-yard touchdown play. Now watch the throw. There's the catch. He beats Gorman, number 41. Gorman making a valiant effort to pull him down. But the youngster appeared to be jet-propelled, and he simply drove away. And it's 34-14 now. Ball is down. In the air. Greg McCrean's try is no good. With a minute and 26 seconds remaining in the third quarter, St. Francis Xavier X-Men 34. Waterloo Lutheran Golden Hawks 14.
Well, I don't know whether it's my imagination or not, but it seems to me that Waterloo have caught a second breath. That long touchdown pass to Bailey has brought revived spirit to them. It's the end. This will be the last play of the third quarter. The flag is down, but watch out in that fourth quarter. They could explode.
Twin flankers to the right side. Handoff is to the second man. And barreling through the hole goes John Crespi. Crespi is almost to the 42-yard line. And very close to a first down.
But starting the fourth quarter, the Hawks lost the ball.
Dolan hands off to Brule, and Brule just hit straight ahead. 9 minutes, 38 seconds remaining. In the double wing, back goes Dolan. He looks, throws over the center. The receiver is wide open. John Purcell breaks out over the 50 into the 45 and then to the 40-yard line. Chris Bailey bringing him down. First down for the X-Men. Dolan to Brule. Back again. Here's a trap handoff to Brule, and Brule was spilled from behind as he got to the 30-yard line. Second down and 7. The X-Men just eating up the ground now. They're twin set to the left side with Gorman, the outside man, as Dolan rolls left. Looks, throws over the center to Gorman, who had come cutting back in, and he's brought down on the 20-yard line. Bill Raboli over the ball. Flanker set wide to the left side is Skip Corrigan. The handoff is to Brule. Driving, touchdown! Brule! And the X-Men went 84 yards in 10 plays, or an average of 8.4 yards on each play in the sequence. John Burke will attempt to convert. The ball is down. It is blocked. It is no good. And now St. Francis Xavier 40. Waterloo Lutheran Golden Hawks 14.
And that's the way the game ended. A game which returned a decisive winner in St. Francis Xavier University. And, of course, a dead game loser in Waterloo Lutheran. A game packed with great highlights. A game which also established the College Bowl as one of Canada's major sports attractions in the future.
Now for the presentation of the Vanier Cup to the winning co-captains. We'll bring in the Minister of National Revenue, the Honorable E.J. Benson, who will make the presentation to the co-captains, Jim Shea and Terry Brule. Mr. Minister.
Mr. Brule, Mr. Shea, I would like to congratulate you on a wonderful game today. And it is with great pleasure that I present to you the Vanier Trophy, symbolic of victory in this, the second annual College Bowl.
The Vanier Trophy being held high by co-captains Jim Shea and Paul Brule after the presentation.
Another interesting presentation was made by former University of Toronto star Jerry Sternberg. The individual award, the Teddy Morris Memorial Trophy, to Terry Gorman. And that's the way it was in the 1966 College Bowl. On behalf of the Save the Children Fund, brought to you by the Canadian Armed Forces, Channel 11, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and its affiliated stations coast to coast.
Home of historic St. Francis Xavier University, which in turn is home of one of Canada's finest intermediate football teams. A dog for a mascot, a former professional star, Don Loney, is coach, and in 1958, a spirited and talented football club brought new honors to this popular Maritimes college known across Canada as St. X. St. Francis Xavier celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1953. The reputation of St. X as a competent seat of learning and its skill in guidance of young men is well known across North America. Students come from every Canadian province and from many of the American states. So we invite you to follow a story of a...
Between 1957 and 1973, Don Loney was one of the most successful university football coaches in Canada. For more than 8 years, his teams didn't lose a conference game. Time magazine called his X-Men the Assassins from Antigonish. Don was the driving force behind the Atlantic Bowl and the Vanier Cup, the National College Championships. The Toronto Globe and Mail called him the father of maritime football.
This is where I grew up on West Street, which directly is right across from St. X, the football field.
For more than 50 years, Gerald "Red" Kennedy followed the career of Coach Don Loney. As an 8-year-old kid watching the team practices, Red was enthralled by his charismatic persona and his hard-nosed professional style of coaching. Over the years, he became a good friend of Coach Loney and collected hours of audio-taped interviews and hundreds of photographs documenting Don's career. In the last few years of Don's life, Red spearheaded the making of this film.
Years may creep, but still we'll keep loyal to the white and blue.
I think practice for X back then was between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and they would go have supper. He was there, it was all business. It was 2 hours. Continuously, there was action. There wasn't too much of a letdown in these practices. But there's no question he had an air about him. No question whatsoever. He had, you know, if you were downtown as a kid or around the campus, or there's Don Loney, or there's Don Loney going for...
The guy always had on pressed slacks, shirt and tie, sweater vest, tweed coat, cigar, and bomber. And he was sort of physically sort of beyond the cliche of what a coach should look like. He had that sort of arthritic kind of gait that you knew came from former football injuries. And you knew that when he barked at the guys, there was no barking back. I mean, it was like the archetype of a football coach.
He was very much a man's man. He liked to lead men. That gave him meaning. It defined his life.
If he was going to do it, it was going to be done right. And I think that's the way he'd coach football. If he was going to do it, he was going to do it right, and he wanted to win.
I hated the son of a gun at practice. It was miserable. And that damn dog. But when they finished and they got back out in the world, they realized that it wasn't just football that Don Loney taught them.
I look back on my career and I say, jeepers, I mean, who molded me more than anybody else in this world than Don Loney? And the day I went from St. X to the pros, I was never better coached personally, one-to-one, than I was at St. X.
He was a great man and a great coach.
Why are we going to see Don?
I believe we're going down to see him. It's a piece of history. There hasn't been basically too much done on the history of the man. He's a very interesting person to talk to, a great artist. Just in general, a very interesting person and a piece of history.
All right.
I can't remember much before I was born. I can remember a little bit after, but
in the making of this documentary, many enjoyable hours were spent in conversation with Don at his Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia home. And right to the end, he was coaching.
How did you end up here? How did you end up in Sherbrooke?
Well, we'll start Ontario first. You were from Ontario, Coach. How did you get to Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia?
Well, I'm kind of got to condense this, Jerry. I was born in Ottawa, the nation's capital, in 1923. My father was a railroad engineer on the CN, at that time probably called the Canadian Northern. And my mother was the daughter of a family of 6 daughters and 1 son from Ottawa. She was the football fan in our family at first. My father got to be later. As a matter of fact, my mother went and bought me my first football. It's a cheap one. It cost about $1. And when a big fat guy fell on it, he broke it. He burst it. But that was, and then I started playing. There was now I found out there were little street teams.
The Loney family soon moved to Montreal, and this is where Don learned his football, alongside future Montreal Canadiens great Doug Harvey. In 1943, Don joined the Navy as an officer. By the end of the war, Don found himself playing professional football in Montreal. However, a year later, a full scholarship to play football at North Carolina State lured him south of the border.
It was a fairly tough, they didn't fool around too much, you know, it was hot and practiced twice a day and all that stuff. Well, being young guys in good shape, it didn't bother you that much. And I'm calling home. I used to call home every weekend, you know. And I'm talking to my mother. She's going on, now I'm getting homesick. You know, I'm the only Canadian left in North Carolina State. I've made the team. I had no worries. Everything was just perfect, but I miss guys. My roommate who ended up coming to Canada, that's one of the best halfbacks we ever had in Ottawa. I left a note on his pillow telling him I'd gone back to Canada. And he thought I was kidding. He said, I came back, and I waited up all night till the morning, and he said, I thought you were just kidding. And so I wasn't, of course. I had left and gone up to the Argonauts, and that year we won the Grey Cup. And North Carolina State got into the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida, against Oklahoma. And shit, I would have been playing, you know.
We have the Grey Cup every year, symbol of championships in the CFL. What was it like for you? You played in 3 and you won 2 Grey Cup championships.
Yep.
What was it like in your first Grey Cup game?
Getting into the Grey Cup was not only being in a championship for Canada football game, but you were also involved in this very kind of funny, glamorous horseshit affair that was. The Grey Cup game of '48 was a classic game. it had some very interesting incidents. The famous sleeper play. Sleepers are no longer allowed. Eh? You get one of your players and he pretends he's going off the field and he lies down on the sideline so nobody can see him. And then you call your play, you're going to run a play. Now all of a sudden he jumps up and now he's become a receiver. But nobody's covering him because nobody saw him. That's why they called it sleeper. And he goes down the field and so geez, they call. And I played two ways in those days. So I'm on a defensive team when this happens. And all the people in the stands saw the guy. And they're all getting up and shouting to us and pointing. And we think they're just waving at us. And we kind of wave back. Here's this son of a bitch lying down on the sideline. Normie Hill. Remember the name so well. He jumps up, runs down over our goal line and catches a winning pass. And that was the Grey Cup of '48. It was full of drama.
Coach Don Loney played for both the Toronto Argos and Ottawa Rough Riders during his 9-year career in professional football.
Don was a great two-way player. An offensive and defensive center, he was an all-star that year and 3 other years as well. In 1950, he won the Jeff Russell Award as the Eastern Conference's most valuable player. In 1953, a serious football injury ended Don's professional playing career, and, without missing a beat, Don came east to the Shearwater Naval Base, where he took a Navy diving course and began his illustrious coaching career.
The extra point is good, and the X-Men have increased their lead to 19 points.
John Packy McFarland was a longtime head basketball coach and later athletic director at St. X. In his early days at X, along with four-legged assistants Bomber and Rebel, Packy was an assistant football coach with Don.
Don was a good football player. He played in the CFL, and he was injured, and he knew that his playing days were over, but he was still going to be in the service, so he was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and they needed somebody to run their program for them. So Don had been coached pretty well, had played high school football, then played in the CFL. And I think it was just a natural progression for him to say, all right, I'll give it a hook, I'll help coach this team. And once he got into it, he really decided, hey, this is what I like to do. He went full bore with it. He didn't, he went full speed ahead. At one time when he was with the service team, they ran a single wing with the Shearwater and those people. It was single wing was, at that time, was probably the big formation in any football teams around. And he had great players for it. But when he came to the university, he realized this was not a place for that. He went out and he just decided we're going to play another kind of way, and which he did. He spread people out and moved things around. And he was willing to try just about anything. But again, I don't think he was a fancy coach. By fancy, I mean he didn't like trick plays. Although he'd have something every once in a while that he would try to put in for a little fun for the guys, actually, to make it. But he, I don't know, I always liked the way he coached.
In the 3 years he was head coach of the Shearwater Flyers, they won 3 maritime titles and only lost 2 games. When the opportunity and challenge came to coach St. Francis Xavier football team, he jumped at the idea. Knowing that the university had been strong in English rugby, but that they had only a few years earlier started playing Canadian football, Don thought it would be a good idea to go to Antigonish and check out the football facilities.
I wanted to look at it before I came down from Shearwater. So I'd come down a little earlier to do this check. And the old janitor there, old Ranny, and I said, okay, now, let's see all the football gear. I said, where are the shoes? And there's a great big cardboard box there. He said, in there. And I said, well, can I look at them? So he opens up the big box. They've been thrown into the box after the last game, which was in the mud. So you can imagine the shape of those. Okay, I said, fine. So I said, where's the rest of the stuff? You know, do you have little lockers for all the stuff, the shoulder pads? And no, it was just big things. He didn't know what the hell it was all about anyways. Okay, I said, that's the equipment room. He says, yeah, that's it. Now I said, show me the dressing room. Okay, I walked into that room. It's empty. All there is a big board down the side of the room with coat hooks on it. I said, is this the dressing room? No lockers or anything? No. Oh, I said, okay. Now I'm starting to make mental notes of what's in the future.
Well, Don was fire marshal, he was placement officer, he became manager of the rink, and he was the head football coach. And he was going 12 months of the year, basically.
This is Father Mifflin. His concern at St. FX goes beyond the usual academic problems. He is the general manager of the university's football team, which you see here hard at work.
A lot of people used to say to me, well, how'd you get along amongst all those Catholics down there? You know what I mean? And to me, that was not a problem. I could eat in the priest's dining room. That was a tremendous plus, you know. That I had immediate access to people that I had to work with. For instance, let's say you have a problem with confliction. Not that there was any great confliction, but there was between academics and athletics, in the sense that maybe an academic program interfered with football practice. So what do you do? You know, some people will say, well, football's not important, rah, rah, rah. But see, that wasn't the way it was done. I went to see the priest. The whole academic structure had a priest involved somewhere.
He would sit with different priests, and then after a while, Don would be there early, and the priests would race to kind of get there, to get their chair at Don's table. They loved to talk to him because he was an interesting guy. He was a historian, he was a philosopher, he was everything.
I had a little trouble converting some of the priests over to Protestants, so I'll tell you that. Living on the campus and within the confines of the community, of the St. FX community, was tremendously important to me. Not to people that followed me. It didn't really mean that much, but at my time, it meant a lot, you know. And so that relationship was very important.
The Scholars from Antigonish now lead by the slim margin of 1 point, 20-19. Now get ready for the most spectacular play of the game. George Tonis fades back. St. FX defensive end Hugh Huck drives in, steals the ball from the quarterback's upraised arm, and his touchdown puts the Maritimers out in front, 26-19. The jubilant St. FX bench goes wild. St. Francis Xavier, still unbeaten in 8 games, become the Eastern Canadian Intermediate Football Champions.
Football was a religion to me. I mean, it was as important to me as religion. I believed everything in football was in religion, so you know what I mean. I always put everything I could into the game, and within reason, you know, I didn't go crazy. But I thought the game football was a great teacher, really.
He taught them how to be men. He taught them to be disciplined. He taught them to care for other people, to care for each other. And that stayed with them, and when they get out there, all of a sudden they realize, you know, I never told Coach what he meant to me.
If you were sitting in the stands and you watched him have a bit of verbal abuse to the officials or some of the players during the game and so on, that was just Coach. I mean, the fact was that we knew what Coach Loney was like. He was very funny when it was appropriate to be funny. He got angry at you when you deserved to get hollered at. And the fact of the matter was that when he did this, he was not angry. What he was doing, he was very critical of what it was that you did or didn't do. And the fact of the matter was that Don Loney was a perfectionist, and he always expected us to be the same. So when something wasn't executed exactly the way it should have been, then of course we received the critique that only he could give us. But actually he was a very kind and a very gentle man, and most of the players, well, all of the players knew that. And because of that, we always respected what he said to us during the game, to the point where in most cases we made sure that we executed the way he expected us to.
Some of these guys were pretty wild when they came here. I remember a lot of them. And now they've done very well in business. And they'll go back to Coach Loney and they'll say it's the discipline, it's the caring, and they became team players. And any businessman will say, if I can hire a guy that is a team player, I want him in my business. And that's what Don did.
Somebody said to me not long ago, How many of your players are playing in the CFL or the whatever you go to after college? I said, you know, I really don't care. I really don't care. But ask me, how many players are doctors? How many are lawyers? How many are school teachers? How many are the fathers of very good families? Then I'll give you a big list. And the game of football to me has been the means for people to achieve.
Firstly, meet some of the individuals who made 1958 a championship football year at St. Francis Xavier. John McKernan, senior tackle from Hampstead, New York. Tackle Joe Fox from Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Kickoff specialist Ron McLean from New Waterford, Nova Scotia. This boot, in the traditional Pearly Cup game, will be talked about for years to come. Bill Shea, guard and linebacker. Shea and Rowe are 1959 season captains. Here's Shea recovering a fumble. An alert ball hawk. He's one of three brothers who have meant a great deal to St. FX football.
Don was a life skill coach. Part of that was football. His job is to turn these boys and turn people that he associated with, including me and including the equipment managers and including Johnny Pike, to turn them into men. Men of will and determination and independence. People who knew what they wanted in life and knew how to go about getting it. People, whether it's in the field of arts, whether it's in the professions or politics, achieve only great success by going that extra, going all out, not going halfway.
Not only teaching a bunch of football players how to kick and push a leather thing around to satisfy a bunch of idiots in the stands. I don't mean that, that's just a joke. But you're trying to take out of the game sort of the noble aspects of the game. How is this game going to prepare these kids for life in general?
Now get set for a great play by Tom Delaney. The ball scrimmage on the St. FX 35. See the great block by Ramsey McLean. It puts Delaney in the clear. The Portland Flash streaks 75 yards for touchdown number 3. The extra point is good, and the X-Men have increased their lead.
As August was passing by, and we were getting closer and closer to the opening of football camp, the intensity and the joy in his life would be paramount. He would look so forward to the boys showing up, and who was coming and where they were coming from, and he would know everything about them. And he'd work them hard. I mean, the cream of Jesus would be out within a day. They would have huge blisters on the back of their feet, and the boys would go back out and they'd play for him. They knew that he cared about them. Sure, there was rough times, but he was running a football team, and he was taking these boys and turning them into men in that process.
I know there's some that didn't like me at all, that's for sure, but you're not coaching for the guy to like you, you're coaching for the guy to respect you. And you can respect and not like. You have to determine fairly early in your life, if you're going to go into coaching, that character is important. So you always have that in the back of your head, that you're trying to develop a little character in the kids.
The ends are Paul Schoenhart and John Purcell. The quarterback, Calgary's Terry Dolan. Flanker set wide to the left side is Skip Corrigan. The handoff is to Brule, driving, touchdown! Brule!
He was a psychologist. A lot of coaches have a lot of guys come in and they lose them. He had everybody figured out. And he knew what it took to tweak this guy here, to be soft with this guy, give him a pat. This guy, you kicked him in the rear, and he had all that figured out. He had a whole set of exercises lined up for us, and every day we had these damn logs where we had to run between the legs. It was almost like relay races. It was very military. I look back at the at the coach's theory behind all this was that he had us better conditioned. He was so far ahead of his time. That's why we were so much better.
In the double wing, back goes Dolan. He looks, throws over the center. The receiver is wide open. John Purcell breaks out over the 50.
To come down and play hockey, and I made the football team and ended up playing football here 4 years. He ended up more of a lot of father figure for me. father died when I was down here in '64, I think it was, and I went home, and my mom said, well, you may should go back to St. X. You got a good fellow in Don Loney there, he'll take care of you. So he trained me not only for football, but for life, and he's very, very great man.
Delaney takes a wide handoff, flips out to Ernie Fauché, who moves the ball.
He got along wonderful with the sisters. Yeah, in fact, the sisters made the blankets for the dog and the little mitts and stuff to put on the paws. They did all that for Don Loney, and you'd see in the wintertime the dog would coming along with the blanket on him.
That was something special to them. They used to sew the socks, sew the uniforms, the sweaters, and you know, the St. Martha's are the ones he was closest to because they lived on campus.
They were also in charge of the kitchen in there, and there was a student came in one day, and she asked the old sister in the kitchen, to pray for her. And she said, no, I can't pray for you, because I'm putting all my time with the football team.
So anyways, the sisters weren't allowed to go to the games because in those days if they had to wear their habit all the time, and they weren't allowed to go to a game and all that. So one sister would go over to and she'd take her notebook and she'd watch the game in the window, and she'd be writing stuff down. And then she'd go back after the game, after supper, and they'd all meet in their little room upstairs. And she'd tell them all about the game. That went on for quite a few years before they were allowed to see a game.
In my mind, he was number one, and he'll always be number one.
And with seconds remaining in the game, Somerville runs out the clock with a quarterback sneak. There goes the final gun. St. Francis Xavier, still unbeaten in 8 games, become the Eastern Canadian Intermediate Football Champion.
Don, right from day one, was a visionary. He was a molder of young men, first of all, but he also had a vision for the game in the country. His vision was, now we have this conference, let's have some kind of a post-season game that would bring together the winner of this conference with a winner from somewhere else. And that's where the Atlantic Bowl came from. And it was only 2 years after Don got to St. X that the first Atlantic Bowl game was played.
And then we went to the CIAU, and I was president of the football group in the CIAU in those days, just for 1 year now. But our goal was to get football in Canada from coast to coast on the same level so we could have a proper championship game.
He and Father Rousel talked about it, and they met with Peter Gorman, who was the father of Terry Gorman and John Gorman. And Peter was a businessman and very involved in doing something for the poor children of the world. So they went to see him and they said, look, why don't we have a national championship in Toronto that would bring together the top teams from the East and the West, much like the Grey Cup. And so Peter Gorman said, look, I'll get some people together, and as you remember, it's history. And St. X played in the second one in '66.
The Canadian College Bowl. Ideal weather this afternoon. In the bowl game, and undefeated teams in their respective conference. Waterloo Lutheran. And let's meet St. Francis Xavier X-Men, 81, John Purcell, the left end. Number 72, the left tackle, John Kearney. Number 65, the left guard, Bernie McLean. At center is number 52, Ted Goodwin.
When you left Annie Ganesh play in the first Children's Bowl in Toronto, let's face it, St. X would be underdogs.
Yeah.
But did you feel when you made that trip to the city that, watch out, we're going to surprise some people?
Well, no, actually, you know, because you read the papers, and we were called the weak sisters of the East. We were told we didn't deserve to be there. Mind you, that we were the only 2 undefeated teams in the country at the time. But, you know, we thought ourselves probably as somewhat underdogs.
The right tackle, number 75, is Jim Shea. The right end, number 82, Paul Schonard. Number 27 is Skip Corrigan, the left halfback. The outstanding fullback, number 30, Paul Brule.
Knowing the way we had been prepared, or we've always been prepared, there would be nothing left to chance.
Yeah.
Number 20 is the flanker, Terry Aronson. Number 41 at halfback, Terry Gorman. And number 10, the quarterback, Terry Dolan. Ideal weather.
We felt we could win every game, and there was no problem. You know, it wasn't going in and being nervous or anything, because we knew everything about it, and we knew the plays, we knew what we were going to do, we knew the strategy.
Crowd barely settled in their seats when halfback Skip Corrigan started the X-Men on their way. Hand off wide to Skip Corrigan. Corrigan got outside a block. Now the pursuit is on. He's into the 20, lights one off, and goes out of bounds on the 14-yard line.
When we went out in the field, the socks had to be up, the shoes had to be shined, we had to have the pants right, the sweaters were clean, everything was just, had to be immaculate, going out like you're a pro team.
Mm-hmm. Even our shoelaces were washed.
Yeah.
We used to have to scrub our shoelaces. Remember, John?
Yeah, yeah.
Even in our room, we had our shoelaces hanging up in our room, white. I mean, we walked out there, everything was sparkling. Every guy had $100 football shoes on.
The ends are Paul Schoenhart and John Purcell. The quarterback, Calgary's Terry Dolan. Handoff, and the hole opened up for Paul Brule. He's at the 15, 10, 5, touchdown. And that's Brule can run.
Loney didn't think I was quick enough. The whole week, almost the whole season in practice, I had to wear those friggin' high tops that weighed about 4 pounds each. As a running back, on game day,
took him off.
He gave me my little lightweights.
They were made from a kangaroo leather.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Rydell XPs. I had the Rydell XPs. He gave them to me. He took them away from me during the week. I wasn't allowed to wear those. On game day, he put them in my locker. I felt like I could fly. You know, he had you figured out.
Oh yeah.
He always had an edge on me.
Terry Dolan going back to throw, and it's complete and touchdown. Terry Arneson in the end zone. And now St. Francis Xavier 40. Waterloo Lutheran Golden Hawks 14. And that's the way the game
I never felt that Don Loney ever got the due respect that he deserves for the Atlantic Bowl and the what we now call as the Vanier Cup.
The Vanier Trophy being held high by co-captains Jim Shea and Paul Brule after the presentation.
He was a perfectionist, and he didn't take any a second to third rate effort from coach didn't exist.
I'm a perfectionist. It doesn't mean I know a lot or can do a lot, but whatever I do or try to do or examine what you've done, I'm looking for, I will not accept second rate. If you can't do it, tell me. I'll accept you telling me that you can't do it, but I won't accept you telling me you can do it and then doing a bad job.
I mean, it's something he took up, quite late in life, is painting. But I think that anything he ever took up to do, he would do very, very well. He didn't want to do anything half-baked, He wanted to make sure if he was going to do it, it was going to be done right. And I think that's the way he'd coach football. If he was going to do it, he was going to do it right, and he wanted to win.
I loved to draw when I was a kid. And my father wasn't a bad artist, too. He taught me how to draw horses. There's one in one of those Christmas cards. Oh, there's one. I'm pretty good with the horses. No problem with the horses. My father was a perfectionist. Well, he had to be because of the nature of his job. Father was a railroad engineer. If you're running a fast train with 10 coaches behind you full of people at 70 miles an hour, and then an emergency is created or whatever, you cannot look for excuses. From the point of view of painting a picture, there's something about painting. You sort of select the thing that has the most influence on you.
Ernie Fauché, fullback in his sophomore year from Portland, Maine. Fauché is an outstanding football and basketball player and a better-than-average student. Here, Fauché returns the kickoff with a 30-yard run. Fauché's 83 became a familiar and lucky number for St. F X. Here he combines with another backfield star, Tom Delaney.
My own personal life, where I don't have my own family, this is a very important part. That you have a tendency then to look to other people as being part of your family, of course. You know, I have an awful big family if you go back through all the football players.
Hey, Coach, number 30 here, number 1 in your heart. John Purcell, Schoenhart, and myself. Are you ready to come back and coach? Because we're going to have a major set to tomorrow. We'll be there for around 1 o'clock. We'll bring lunch.
Don spent his retirement years in the quiet, historically restored village of Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia. It was a cold Super Bowl weekend in early February when a group of the coach's men flew in from central Canada for what was to become their last visit with Don.
Now you'll have to take the place as it is, man.
Hey, we're used to that.
You didn't come from Waterloo.
Just down Main Street, just down, you know.
Close.
Oh, you're from Waterloo.
Yeah.
You were kind of...
I was borderline.
on the outskirts.
Yeah.
Ottawa, you thought it was south.
Yeah.
Start off with talking about the few guys from Ottawa that came in with long hair, and the other guy came in the early 70s.
You just start off the thing saying that, and I'll say yes.
My point is, was there a change back then in the late 60s, early 70s, about listening to a coach? If you said here today, gone tomorrow, and they didn't cut the hair, respect, what was your course to take?
No, you know what? I don't even agree. It had nothing to do with respect. It had to do with a whole shift in mentality, in a thought process.
Yeah, no.
And
a new era.
The days when Scroney and I and John were there, if the coach said run through the wall, you ran through the wall. A few years after us,
but if you said
somebody said run through the wall, and the guy would say why.
The period had changed. We were going out of a period of social life into a new period, which brought in the fact that football players could actually object to something. They never objected to anything before. They did exactly what they were told.
The people who came in as freshmen in my last year, and then the classes of the subsequent years, these are kids coming out of high school where, they already have, and date myself here, they got the latest Beatle album and the latest Stone album, and they probably have longer hair. They probably know which end of a joint to light, etc. and so on. And they're probably not really buying into like a 1950s style crew cut kind of approach to things.
As a young man who may be escorting his date to any one of a number of functions.
And certainly, I'm sure, wouldn't be as inclined to take the kind of hard-nosed approach that Don Loney would have championed.
Whatever it is, he has to wait until the woman is ready. And man, how long does it take one to get ready? Well, there she is, and it was worth it, wasn't it? Perhaps the couple were headed for one of the informal college dances.
But as the 60s unfolded, when there was some political activity where there were students who probably thought that it was time for St. FX to roll out of the 17th into the early 18th century. And in the last year, around the possibility of boycotting of some exams and some conflict between the administration, the faculty, and some of the students, it was arranged to have a two-day kind of summit to see if they could work out some of the problems, which were around like, if you were over 21, could you have booze on campus? 21, not 19. If you owned a car, could you bring the car to Antigonish if you could find a place to store it? Could there be visitations in the dorms of boys and girls, like half days, weekends with open doors, stuff like that? So anyway, I ended up at a session at Crystal Cliff with Don Loney, a small, maybe 8 or 9 people, like a faculty member. He was a coach. There was a couple of students, and I forget who else was there. Certainly would have been a member of the clergy and all of the groups in those days. And over the course of a day, I was surprised, like across the board, about Don Loney. I would have assumed, of course, he would have been hardcore, totally in support of the established clerical hierarchy, which was in control of St. FX in those days. He was not. He was clearly way better informed, way more moderate, and a much, much broader guy. I didn't know about the painting or those kinds of things, but you could tell by the way he talked. And I remember coming away not only feeling different about him, but feeling an awful lot better about him, and and finding myself kind of chastising myself over the next day or so.
The long hair was a sign by the individual that he could do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it was a social trend. And the guys that played football and perhaps other sports didn't want to be disassociated with everybody else. They thought it was their right. They could grow their hair the way they wanted it, you see. So anyways, we played this music in the dressing room to try to rouse the guys. You know, music does a lot. And it worked for many years. Get everybody up on their toes and couldn't wait to get out and face the enemy and all that stuff. And so anyway, one day one of the guys came up to me before the game, one of the new guys. Coach, don't you have some other kind of music? I said, why?
What other kind of music is there?
Yeah. Well, we like, and he named some rock and roll tune. Do you have something by the Beatles?
Yeah.
You know? Uh-oh, I said. Times are
yeah, that's fair.
It's hard to imagine that the young kids with the kind of expectations they had and the kind of haircuts and tastes they had in music wouldn't have had some effect on a guy like Don and say, you know what? I had a long time here. I'm a legend. I'm going to say adios and right after Sherbrooke.
Did you ever think you might have liked to coach longer?
No, not on. I would have liked to coach longer, but I didn't want to see me going into a conflict with society or a conflict with kids because this is what they do nowadays.
Yeah.
If they could prove to me that what they were doing was adding a plus or making the game better, but from what I could see after 20-some years, didn't represent the game that made me almost religious about it.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't see that, then my option was to get out of it, which I did. You know what we forgot to mention?
The hockey stick?
The hockey stick. I was at X at the time, and Harvey's playing for Montreal, and they get in the playoffs against Detroit, I think. And so I used to like to try to get up to see the odd game if I could. So I got a hold of Doug, and I said, can we get a couple of tickets? He says, oh, yeah. So we get to the Forum, and there's 2 tickets there for us, and we saw the game, and then after the game was over, I said, come on, George, we're going down to the dressing room, say hello to some of these guys. And you're talking about some of the all-time famous guys. You're talking about Doug Harvey and Rocket and all those guys. They're all sitting in the dressing room, the game's over. And so I go in, and Doug comes over, and I says, Doug, can you do me a big favor? What's that? I want a hockey stick to bring back to Antigonish, to give it to this kid. Oh, no problem. So he goes over to Maurice Richard. He takes the stick right out of his hand, and he takes it around the dressing room, gets everybody to sign it. You know, all the biggies at the period, eh? And he said, here, how's that? I said, oh, geez, you know. So I brought it back, and I gave it to Jimmy Chisholm. He was our water boy. Eh? I guess he was our water. We called him the water boy. Well, so a couple of days later, I'm walking down the street in Antigonish, and I saw some kids over playing what we used to call it?
Street hockey.
Street hockey. So I walked over, and Jimmy's there. And what's he got in his hand? The stick. Do you know what the stick would be worth today? $10,000.
Maybe more.
Well, we'll say $10,000.
That's a starter.
Yeah, and he's out playing shinny hockey with it.
This is another side of Don that people never saw. As he got a little bit older, in his 50s, he was a champion of the underdog.
Baby stuff. And then
Long before the days of organizations like Big Brothers, Don's boot camp style of helping seemed to work well with a number of troubled youth. One afternoon, he pulled out some letters and photos from a young man he had taken under his wing many years ago. At that time, the youth had no father and was being brought up by his mother in desperate circumstances.
When he was a little guy, oh, I got to read this stuff. When he used to come out to the house, I told you before, you get on the old typewriter, and he wrote this one night. Dear Don, I like coming out to see you because I have lots of fun and like going out in the boat because I learned something. Now, the spelling is terrible. I do not come out here for to eat and go out in the boat, or play darts, or drive the truck. I just come out to enjoy your company. Now, imagine that from a young kid. And I wouldn't get rid of that for the world. Then all of a sudden, after many, many, many years, we're talking about 1985 to 1996. I get this letter from, I don't think I can read it. To dear old friend, which is kind of unusual for a kid to start off a letter like, but he's not a kid anymore. He's no. Thank you for sending the photos. Boy, they brought back some good memories. You were a big part. I can't read that. It's too difficult. You read it. You were a big part in my life when I was growing up. You were a big brother I didn't have. I can read it myself without breaking up. It's when I read it out loud. You were a big brother I didn't have. You have shown me so many things that my own family couldn't show me. Poor kid didn't have much of a family. I still remember waiting for you to pick me up for the weekend. I was so excited. It was like a break from my own family. You are a very special person. That's the part that's hard to read. Really? Maybe another sip of rum. You're a very special person, though there isn't many men like yourself left in this world. I owe you a lot for my success in life. You have taught me to be a go-getter. And I remember you always telling me, nobody is going to hand you a golden platter. Well, that's not exactly the way it is, but what I said is life is not on a golden platter or something like that. How did you not get that? That was our school song at those two. Ours was Cheer, cheer for old West Hill High. I was lucky in having the kind of parents I did, you know. And lucky in having such good friends that I did when I was younger. And lucky to have the opportunity to come to places like St. FX. And lucky to have the whole thing. Kennedy. We used to call him Red when he was a kid. He used to get in our way. He was running around at the end of the practice field. I used to say, get that kid out of here. And so they'd say, okay, we'll take him out. But he might be back tomorrow. Well, I said, okay, if he comes back 3 days in a row, he can hang around. So anyway, here he is 50 years later. and he's sitting there, he's very positive. He's a very good friend. So we decided that there's more to me than football.
Hail and health to alma mater, on for St. FX's name. Leading, trailing, vim unfailing, play the game. Life's the goal that gleams before us, faith and honor free. Swell the old Xavier chorus, sing for victory. We of old St. Francis Xavier, caring hearts and true. Years may creep, but still we'll keep loyal to the white and blue.
Antigonish, Nova Scotia, home of historic St. Francis Xavier University, which in turn is home of one of Canada's finest intermediate football teams. A dog for a mascot, a former professional star, Don Loney, is coach, and in 1958, a spirited and talented football club brought new honors to this popular Maritimes college known across Canada as St. FX. St. Francis Xavier celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1953 and is noted around the world for its extension work and often called the seat of the cooperative movement in Eastern Canada. This is Father Mifflin. His concern at St. FX goes beyond the usual academic problems. He is the general manager of the university's football team, which you see here hard at work. Coach Don Loney played for both the Toronto Argos and Ottawa Rough Riders during his 9-year career in professional football. A frequent all-star, he won the league's Jeff Russell Trophy as the league's most valuable and sportsmanlike player. The reputation of St. FX as a competent seat of learning and its skill in guidance of young men is well known across North America. Students come from every Canadian province and from many of the American states. In sports, St. FX has been noted as an outstanding center for English rugger and for hockey and basketball. Its background in Canadian football goes back only 5 years. So we invite you to follow a story of a remarkable season, going right to a Canadian final in the school's 5th year of play in Canadian rugby football. Firstly, meet some of the individuals who made 1958 a championship football year at St. Francis Xavier. John McKernan, senior tackle from Hampstead, New York, tackled Joe Fox from Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Kickoff specialist Ron McLean from New Waterford, Nova Scotia. This boot in the traditional Pearly Cup game will be talked about for years to come. It travels 65 yards in the air. And Dave Farrell, senior art student from Montreal. Marvin Rowe, guard and 1958 captain. Bill Shea, guard and linebacker. Shea and Rowe are 1959 season captains. Here's Shea recovering a fumble. An alert ball hawk. He's one of 3 brothers who have meant a great deal to St. FX football. Don Preston, native of Montreal, wingback, science senior, great blocker, pass receiver, and outstanding defensive player. Preston shown here intercepting a pass and running it for a touchdown. Another TD pass for Preston, a native of Montreal who hopes to play pro football. Pete Ambrose, fullback from Watertown, Massachusetts, a veteran of 4 years play, shown smashing off tackle for a big gain, also a defensive stalwart. Ernie Fauché, fullback in his sophomore year from Portland, Maine. Fauché is an outstanding football and basketball player and a better than average student. Here, Fauché returns the kickoff with a 30-yard run. Fauché's 83 became a familiar and lucky number for St. FX. Here he combines with another backfield star, Tom Delaney. Delaney, sensational sophomore halfback, was another product of Portland, Maine. Called Tom the Bomb, the league's most valuable player winner and high scorer, made many crowd-pleasing runs during 58, including this 75-yard touchdown gallop. And here in typical Delaney style, the Portland Flash swings around his right end to score another important touchdown in St. FX's big football year. The quarterbacks, Ray Somerville on the left and Ken Townsend. Townsend, one of 3 Saskatchewan natives on the team, shows his ability as a runner on the option play. Many Maritimes cheers in 1958 were directed to Ray Somerville, freshman quarterback and a native of Cornwall, Ontario, shown here turning a miscue into a sizable gain. Somerville, number 90, developed into the league's best passer and more than proves the point as he completes a long touchdown pass to Don Preston. Nick Rickey on the left, Ralph Hayes on the right. Freshman halfbacks from Massachusetts. Watch Rickey on the goal line as he receives the punt. The 18-year-old freshman eludes a horde of tacklers with a 40-yard run. Hayes was the rookie halfback sensation of the year. He thrilled a big Halifax crowd by taking a handoff and traveling 90 yards for a touchdown. the longest run of the season in Maritimes football. This touchdown helped set a new league record for yards gained rushing in 1 year. And here is Hayes with a game-saving interception. The Thanksgiving weekend is a big one in Maritime football. A highlight in 1958 was the meeting between undefeated St. Francis Xavier and the defending Canadian Intermediate champions, the Shearwater Flyers. Earlier in the year, St. Francis Xavier beat Shearwater 13-6, which was the Flyers' first loss in over 20 games. The Thanksgiving Day rematch was a natural. The crowd waited for the game's first break. Here's Ernie Fauché punting to Shearwater's McLeod. McLeod fumbles on his 10-yard line and Bill Shea recovers. Pete Ambrose bowls over for the opening score. Sanborn's extra point is good and the X-Men lead 7-0. Second quarter, Shearwater quarterback Don Lilly finds a weakness in the St. F. X pass defense and hits McLeod with a pass to put the ball deep in blue and white territory. Salmon picks up 5 through the middle. McLeod going to his left adds 5 more to give the Flyers a first down on the 5-yard line. On the next play, fullback Bruce Walker finds a big hole in the St. F. X line and slams across for the first Shearwater touchdown to tie the game 7-all. The Flyers quarterback decides to strike through the air again, and a toss to N. Briard, plus the roughing penalty, puts the ball on the St. F. X 20-yard line. Lilly throws a pass to Harper, who makes a beautiful one-handed catch on the 5. Gordon McLeod finds daylight off tackle and drives across to put the Flyers out in front 13-7. Johnston connects for another convert, and the Naval Airmen lead 14-7. Late in the second quarter, Fauché's punt is fumbled, and a St. F. X ball hawk recovers deep in Shearwater territory with a minute left to play in the first half. Fauché on a pass-run option decides to throw and hits Dave Farrell, who makes a diving catch on the 10. Fauché adds 6 more on an off-tackle play. 2 plays later, Hayes takes a quick lateral and scampers around the right end, diving over for the major score. Joe Sanborn's extra point ties up the ball game 14-all as the half ends. In the second half, with his back to his goal line, the St. F. X fullback Ernie Fauché connects for one of the longest punts of the season. His 75-yard kick puts Shearwater deep in their own territory. On third down, the Flyer kicker, Fred Hallis, gets off a short punt, which is recovered on the Shearwater 35. A break for Coach Don Loney and his X-Men. 3 successive line smashes. Hayes. Fauché. And Hayes again moves the ball to the Shearwater 5-yard line as St. F. X threaten to break the tie. Fauché slants off tackle from the 5 and crosses the goal line standing up. Joe Sanborn's toe connects for the all-important extra point, and the X-Men lead 21-14. Midway through the fourth quarter, Lilly decides to exploit the weak St. F. X pass defense. A 20-yard pass to Steele starts the march. Look at Bill Harper getting behind a St. F. X defender. Takes Lilly's pass and is down on the 25. Walker's plunge is stopped. And then Lilly rolls out to his right. Fox McLeod in the clear and throws a touchdown pass, cutting the St. F. X lead to 21-20. This convert could tie up the ball game. The ball hits the goal post, and the X-Men still lead 21-20. In the dying seconds, Lilly brings the fans to their feet by completing a long pass to midfield as the game ends. This victory was the 4th in a row for St. FX. They completed the season without a loss to win the coveted Admiral Bidwell Trophy, emblematic of the Nova Scotia Football League title. St. FX went on to trounce St. John, New Brunswick 71-0, earning the right to go into the Eastern Canadian Intermediate Final against the highly rated Lakeshore Alouettes. Lakeshore was a farm club of the Big Four's Montreal Alouettes. They were coached by former Alouette great Herb Trawick, featuring many players hopeful of gaining a berth on the professional parent club. Trawick's Alouettes in the dark sweaters were heavily favored. As quarterback, Sam Echeverry is the key to Montreal Alouettes. Passing ace George Tonis was the Lakeshore big gun. And here is Tonis, number 97, fading back to pass. It's intercepted by Joe Berry, who put St. FX in scoring position. With a first down and 12 yards to go for a touchdown, Somerville sends Ralph Hayes scooting around the right end for 5 yards. Ernie Fauché slams off tackle and moves the ball into the 2-yard line. This time Somerville calls on Tom Delaney, and the free halfback outflanks the Lakeshore line to score the first touchdown of the game. The try for the extra point is blocked, and the X-Men lead 6-0. The determined men from Antigonish struck for another major early in the second quarter when Hayes took Somerville's touchdown pass, and St. FX had a surprising 12-0 lead. But Lakeshore, fighting back on their home field, aren't through. Tonis completing a pass to Swan on the X20. He's finally down in the 7. LaPointe drives for 5. And on the next play, Tonis bootlegs the ball wide around his left end for the first Lakeshore score. Pedicelli misses the extra point, and the score stands St. FX 12, Lakeshore Alouettes 6. Midway through the second quarter, a pass interference ruling puts the ball on the X40-yard line. Halfback Ralph Hayes comes up with a great defensive play as he intercepts a long pass on his 1-yard line. Fauché is forced to punt, but the St. FX forward wall weakens. The punt is blocked, and Lakeshore have the ball on the 3-yard line. LaPointe ties up the ball game as he drives inside tackle for the second Lakeshore major. Pedicelli makes sure of this one, and the Baby Owls now lead 13-12. Early in the second half, Tom Delaney leads the St. FX drive as he rolls around his right end and penetrates into the Montreal 50. A completed pass to Hayes picks up 9 more yards. Somerville's long incomplete pass in the end zone is followed by a third down unsuccessful attempt to Farrell, and the St. FX threat ends as the Montrealers take over on their 40. In the third quarter, LaPointe spearheads another Lakeshore drive by making 10 yards through the middle. 4 plays later, a measurement gives the Montrealers a first down on the 1-yard line. George Tonis puts his head down and pushes over for their third 6-pointer. Pedicelli's extra point attempt goes wide, and the hometown team now lead the Collegians 19-12. Held scoreless in the third quarter, the X-Men rally in the fourth. Ray Somerville hits Jim Keenan with a 15-yard pass, and the freshman end is down in the Montreal 30. Fullback Pete Ambrose slashes off tackle for 7 more. 3 plays later, the St. FX quarterback is stopped on a quarterback sneak from the 2-yard line, and the Owls take over again, still leading by 7 points. Tom Delaney playing a standout game, spearheads the St. FX drive from the Montreal 45 by picking up 12 yards, moving the ball into the Montreal 33. Fauché finds a big hole off tackle and rams through for a first down on the 23. Tom the Bomb takes over from here in. On the next play, he sweeps around the left end of the 15. Driving through the line on a counter play, Delaney picks up 8 more. Somerville starts to his right from the 7-yard line, tosses out to Delaney, and Tom the Bomb drives into the end zone standing up. The score stands at 19-18 in favor of the Lakeshore Alouettes when a high pass from center spoils the chance for the extra point. Lakeshore received the kickoff, and on the first play, Tonis goes back to pass. He gets hit hard, fumbles the ball, and St. FX recover on the Al 10-yard line. On the first down, Ray Somerville's pass to Preston in the end zone is batted by a defender, bobbled by Preston, and then dropped incomplete. On third down, Ernie Fauché drops a short punt into the end zone. Cahill almost makes it out, but is down for a single, and the ball game is tied up 19-all. A fourth quarter drive by the X-Men fizzles out on the Montreal 40, and Ernie Fauché is forced to kick. The bouncing ball is tipped by number 92 as it rolls across the goal line. The Lakeshore safety man is brought down in the goal area for another St. FX point. The Scholars from Antigonish now lead by the slim margin of 1 point, 20-19. Now get ready for the most spectacular play of the game. George Tonis fades back. St. FX defensive end Hugh Huck drives in, steals the ball from the quarterback's upraised arm, and his touchdown puts the Maritimers out in front, 26-19. The jubilant St. FX bench goes wild. Ray Somerville decides to pass for the extra point. Dave Farrell's catch puts the blue and white squad ahead, 27-19. Only a few moments remain in the game as Tonis gets away a 40-yard pass, which is knocked down by Hayes on the 20-yard line. But pass interference on the play gives Lakeshore a first down on the X20. On the first play, Pepin hits wide into the line for no gain. Tonis hits Swan with a 14-yard pass. On the next play, LaPointe drives over from the 6 for the Lakeshore score. Lou Petticelli connects for the convert. A 1-point margin again separates the two teams. The timer's flag indicates 1 minute of play remaining. Tonis fades back to pass from his own 10 and is hit by a swarm of St. FX tacklers and fumbles the ball. St. FX recovers, and with seconds remaining in the game, Somerville runs out the clock with a quarterback sneak. There goes the final gun. St. Francis Xavier, still unbeaten in 8 games, become the Eastern Canadian Intermediate Football Champion and will now journey to the Lakehead to meet the Fort William Redskins, Western Intermediate Champion. St. FX in white sweaters to match the white snow-covered field. St. FX kick off to open the Canadian final. It was a chilly day for players and fans alike. A temperature 10 degrees below the freezing mark. A 3-inch snowfall the night before left an unwelcome blanket on the Fort William gridiron. This made it a tight defensive battle. St. FX had averaged 39 points a game all season, but in this game, the combination of bad elements, cutting down on the St. FX passing attack and flashy wide running plays, and the strong Fort William defense shut out the X-Men. It was a 1-0 lead for the Westerners as the second half began. Most of the play was centered in midfield. In the third quarter, Fort William clicked on a long pass to set up the game's only touchdown. Fort William added 2 singles in the final quarter, and this ruse concluded a 10-0 triumph. It was a Canadian title for the Westerners, an Eastern title, and still a season to remember for St. FX. Perhaps you've heard of the Purdy Cup game. If you live in the Maritimes, you most certainly have. Since the start of Canadian football in the Atlantic provinces, the Purdy Cup has been the prize for the Nova Scotia football champion. It's a postseason classic between the first and second place teams in league play. It winds up Maritime football for the year. In 1958 featured St. FX and the 1957 Canadian Intermediate champions, Shearwater Flyers. The league's honorary president, Admiral Bidwell, and Mrs. Bidwell watched the official kickoff. And early in the first quarter, a hard-charging St. FX line in dark sweaters stops a Flyer third down play. The X-Men take over on the Shearwater 36. Ernie Fauché, number 83, picks up 4 yards off tackle. Adds 6 more on the next play to give X the first down on the 25. Somerville rolls out to his right to pass. Can't find a receiver, decides to take it himself and goes all the way into the end zone. But this touchdown is not allowed as there was a penalty on the play. Back on the Shearwater 35, Ralph Hayes picks up 15 yards on a handoff play right up the middle. Somerville passes to Don Preston in the end zone for a touchdown. The extra point is missed. The Collegians lead 6-0. Ronnie McLean kicks off, gets a tremendous boot away, and the ball travels 65 yards for one of the longest kickoffs on record in the Nova Scotia League. Still in the first quarter, halfback Ralph Hayes bangs into the line for 2 yards. Ernie Fauché adds 3 more off tackle. Ray Somerville hits Hayes right down the middle for a first down. Second quarter, from the Shearwater 40, Delaney scoots for 15 yards. A 4-yard drive by Tom the Bomb brings the ball into the 21-yard line. The St. FX quarterback slides through for 6. Ralph Hayes and Tom Delaney take turns in pushing the ball to the 11-yard line. On the first down, Delaney barges through for 5 more. And then Ray Somerville rolls out to his right and passes to Dave Farrell in the end zone. On the convert, Somerville tries to run for the extra point, gets a great block, but fails to get over. St. FX now lead 12-0. Now gets set for a great play by Tom Delaney. The ball scrimmaged on the St. FX 35. See the great block by Ramsey McLean. It puts Delaney in the clear. The Portland Flash streaks 75 yards for touchdown number 3. The extra point is good, and the X-Men have increased their lead to 19 points. Following the touchdown, veteran fullback Bruce Walker takes the St. FX kickoff and runs it back 40 yards. From the X50, Don Lilly flips a short pass to Walker, who travels to the X25 before he's brought down. Walker picks up 15 yards. And from the St. FX 10, Gord McLeod outflanks the end and hits pay dirt for the Flyers' first score. Eldon Johnston, a 5-year Shearwater veteran, makes the extra point, and the score now reads 19-7. With a first down on his 20, Somerville gets off a 25-yard pass. A pass interference ruling puts the ball on the X46. Delaney takes a wide handoff, flips out to Ernie Fauché, who moves the ball to the 49. Somerville rolls out to his right and gets away a beautiful 40-yard pass to Don Preston, who takes the pass in full stride and travels all the way for his second 6-pointer. The convert was missed, and as the half ends, the Collegians lead 25-7. After taking the second half kickoff, Shearwater succeeds in moving the ball into X territory. This advance is short-lived as linebacker Bill Shea intercepts the Lilly pass and runs it back to the X52. Delaney picks up 3 through the line. And then in a great exhibition of broken field running, Fauché weaves his way to the 35 where he laterals to Delaney, who goes all the way down the sideline into the end zone. Delaney tallies his second TD. Ernie Fauché's convert is good, making the score St. FX 32, Shearwater 7. Shearwater are still battling, but things go from bad to worse. Lilly, the Flyer quarterback, goes back to pass. Don Preston playing a great two-way game for the X-Men as Johnny on the spot intercepts Lilly's toss and drives across the goal line for his 3rd touchdown. Fauché comes through again with a minute left in the 3rd period. Score now reads St. FX 39, Shearwater 7. Still more Shearwater trouble. They lose the ball on downs. The X-Men take over and work the ball to the Shearwater 22. Fauché makes a diving catch on Somerville's pass, and the Collegians are knocking on the door again. Fauché grinds out 4 yards. And on the first play of the 4th quarter, he slams into the end zone, making the score 45-7.
The St. FX fullback converts his own touchdown to make the score read St. FX 46, Shearwater 7. Shearwater had won the Purdy Cup 4 times in its 11-year history, twice beating St. FX. Xavier had never won it, but this was clearly an Antigonish day. In the late stages, St. FX continued the rout, adding another touchdown by Hayes, until Shearwater came up with a last defiant gesture. The determined Flyers, with a series of running plays, came back with their second touchdown. Here is McLeod scoring it with a 4-yard plunge off tackle. Johnston converted. It was 52-14. Watch this one, a Shearwater fumble. Ray Mongeau of St. FX gobbles it up and runs 70 yards for the game's final touchdown. Fauché fakes the convert. Somerville passes to Farrell for the extra point. Final score, St. FX 59, Shearwater 14. And so the traditional maritime classic ends. St. FX in 1958 added the Purdy Cup to their growing collection of football silverware. To the victors go the spoils. And here Bill Shea and Marvin Rowe, co-captains.